This is the Superbox S6 Ultra, and this right here is the Superbox S7 Max. We're going to take a look at it, we're going to unbox it, and we're going to see if there's a difference in here and if it's worth upgrading to the new version. And we're going to do that next on Geekazine. What's up, my geeks? Jeffrey Powers here from Geekazine, Think Magazine, Put in a Geek. Superbox did send me product to review, and they are sponsoring this video, but all opinions are that of Geekazine. I have a full review section over at geekazine.com/review that tells you everything you need to know. If you've got a product that you want me to review, all you have to do is contact me at that page and we'll get it in the shop to take a look at. I'd like to thank my Patreons for being a part of the show. You can be a part of that by going over to patreon.com/Geekazine, or if you'd like to leave a one-time tip, that's over at venmo.com/Geekazine. All right, what is this? This is the Superbox S7 Max. This is an over-the-top television device, an Android box, whatever you want to call it. It is based on the Android operating system, and there's several different ones out there. Like I said, we reviewed the Superbox. This is this S6 Ultra, but now, as of September, they came out with the S7 Max, which has a couple more features to it than the S6. What are those features, you ask? Well, we'll get into that in a second, but this is a device that if you want to, instead of having like a Roku or an Apple TV, you want to have something that you get a little bit more control over, that's where the Superbox comes in. Now, before we get started, I do have to mention that these boxes are very open and they can be controlled. You can sideload apps. This is perfect for a developer that's working on apps. They can sideload it into the box and then see if that works, how it works in the different situations. If you're looking for just the over-the-top box experience, something like a Fire Stick, a Roku, an Apple TV, all those are going to be great for you. But if you're looking for something to do a little bit more, including gaming, including apps, including a lot more, then you want to take a look at something like the Superbox because it gives you that open infrastructure. Plus, you got some apps that you can do a lot of different things with, and we'll take a look at all the apps that comes in here. We might not see that much bloatware, but I know there's a few apps from there. We'll also take a look at the security profile within this, which I have a feeling is going to be pretty much the same as the S6, which we've talked about in a previous video, but I'll go over that once again. First of all, what we're going to do is we're going to unbox the S7 Max and take a look at it. Now, some things that you need to know. First of all, this will work if you've got, by chance, you got a 6K TV. This is going to be perfect for that because it will decode anything that's 6K or below. Whereas right now, 4K UHD is where people are getting the videos from. Now, it also means that if you don't have 6K on like a Netflix or a Hulu or anything like that, you're going to get the best quality, but you're not going to get 6K. Other things that this box has is 1 gig Ethernet, Wi-Fi 6. It's got 4 gigabytes of internal storage and 64 gigabytes of RAM, and a lot more. Let's go ahead and take a look at this right here. So what we've got in here is the Superbox S7. Simple as that. We've got this right here, and underneath we've got the remote control, which looks pretty much like the S6 remote control. Another thing is you might be getting these from different manufacturers, and those manufacturers might put on their own software, their own programs that you can use. We've got an HDMI cable right here. I think that was for the wall plug, and this wall plug runs at 5 volts 2 amp. So if you lose this plug and you try to use other plugs, make sure that it's USB-A. So make sure that you have a 5 volt 2 amp USB-A plug to replace that. We've got a USB-A to C connector. This is so you could probably plug it into the wall right here. And then of course we see the user guide right there. Let's get this out of the way and take a look at the box. There's the Superbox right there. Fairly straightforward. On the front we're going to have an LCD display, and then this is a status light right here. On the side, first side we see is just straight up vent. On the bottom we're also going to see some vents as well. on the back of the device and the other side. That's where we're going to see everything. We're going to start with the other side first. Left to right, what we've got is the TF card slot. We've got a USB-C connection. That's a USB-A on the S6. And then, of course, a USB-A connector right there. Reset button right there. Let's move to the back. You see the wireless antennas, 2 of them. I'm not sure what the dB is on those, but what we have here, we've got the DC input, which is a USB-C, which that cable will work with. Infrared, which there is no additional infrared extender. You'll just have to buy one separate. An AV out, which once again, you don't get that cord, but you can get those cords on like Amazon or something like that. An HDMI cable for the up to 6K video that comes out of it. We've got a 1 gig Ethernet jack. And of course we have the SPDIF, which is basically the optical audio going out of it. And that's pretty much it. Nothing on the side, nothing on the front other than what I've explained. Now let's take a look at the differences between this and the S6. Fairly identical boxes. I bet if we open this up, we would see slightly different electronics in there, but for the most part, it's the same type of PCB with everything because there's not much difference on this. The S6 and the S7 both are using Android 12. They both have a quad-core ARM processor, the A53 processor, with the Mali G31 graphics processor in there. And of course, they've got 4 gigabytes of RAM. Now, the difference is you have in the Superbox, you have the Pro, you have the Max, and you have the Ultra. Max, S7 Max is what they have at this time. There'll probably be an Ultra down the road, but the big difference is how much storage is in here. This is 64 gigabytes, whereas this is 128. And then, of course, the Pro models are 32. So if you need to save yourself a couple dollars in purchasing one of these, go for the Pro, then the Max, then the Ultra. The Ultra on the S6 wins on storage. Simple as that. However, there are a couple things that the S7 Max has that the S6 Ultra doesn't have. Like I said, they have some changes to the UI UX program, so we'll see a slightly different interface. The other thing is the recording time. So if you're watching live shows on the S7 Max, you have a total of 7 days to watch the show before they fall off. Whereas the Ultra, you only had like 8 hours before you had to watch it. So that basically that meant if you recorded last night's shows, you had until the morning to watch it before they were taken off. So as opposed to you have a week to watch the show before it's taken off here. Now, with that said, with that done, that probably means if you have an S6, you're probably not going to be upgrading too much unless you really need those features. And from what I understand, they're not going to be updated on the S6, so you're never going to get 7-day updates here. But with the S7, you'll be able to do that. Before we hook it up to the monitor, let's talk about price. Both of these are $399, and the reason why is because this has more storage in here than this one. If you got the Max version, I think you're saving like $50 on the S6 Max, but this is $399.99 for that. And of course, if you go up on Amazon, they'll probably have some deals, price break, and you'll probably get some other cool stuff. You could hook up things like keyboards and mice and have a lot of accessories to this. So this kind of can feel like having a small PC on your TV where you can do a lot more than just watch videos from Hulu or Amazon or any of those. With that said, what we're going to do is we're going to connect this up and see how this works next. All right, let's talk for a minute here about AE Juice. I am now an affiliate of AE Juice, in where I'm taking this content and making my videos better, and you could do the same thing too, from LUTs to sound effects to transitions to even AI elements and a lot more. You can bring a whole ton of stuff in. You're seeing that as we're going. You can check that out over at geekazine.com/AE Juice for the free starter pack. Of course, there's many other packs over at AE Juice. You can check that out over there, but geekazine.com/ linktr.ee juice. Now let's get back into the content. First of all, I wanted to show you the remotes here, the difference between the remotes. I had a remote, I thought it was a remote, it turned out to be a different remote. So this is the RC, basically it's the exact same remotes. This is the S6 remote right here. This is the S7 remote right here. They are the RC200 from Superbox. So if you've got several of them, you can control them through the same remote. So we'll just set this one over here. And of course, we'll take a look at the remote a little bit closer. We've got the standard buttons. It's a nice remote. It's basically slide down door in the back, and that's where the batteries go. Put that back on. We got the power button. We've got a mute button, and then the TV control. If you want to set that up, you can control different devices right here. That's the red, green, yellow, blue, and then standard pad right here. We got the voice command here, and then of course a number pad on the bottom. Simple as that. So let's go ahead and plug this in and see what we've got for the device. By the way, I tried plugging in USB-C to the monitor to see if it would use the USB-C monitor, but it didn't. So I had to find my converter cable to the HDMI to mini HDMI. As you can see, we see the Superbox right there. We've got our LCD down here, and of course a blue light. I have this plugged into Ethernet. You can do wireless, but I didn't want to mess around with putting in Wi-Fi information right now. All right, the box is loading up. Superbox. I also connected up a keyboard. It makes it a lot easier for putting in all the information like usernames and stuff like that. We get the disclaimer notice as we normally do, saying thanks for choosing Superbox. It says Superbox is an empty and open entertainment device. Due to the nature of the item, we are not in any way responsible for the content streamed or viewed by any user in here. So basically, you're agreeing to this. So let's go ahead and agree. Next thing, it's asking to set up a Wi-Fi network. We're going to skip that because we don't need to, because we're set up via Ethernet. It says set up your screen, 96%. So basically, keys on the remote to change around the borders needs to be extended just a little bit. There we go. And we'll hit finish. And now here's our interface. And if you notice, this interface has some major differences to the older interface. It looks a little bit cleaner, less buttons, but we're definitely seeing that. I'm not sure if we're going to be seeing ads over on this side like we did with the S6, but we have these simple buttons here that we could probably customize as we go. Let's zoom in on the screen so you can see what I'm seeing. All right, so there we go. We have the interface right here. We got our live TV, our video on demand, playback, our apps, the app store. If we go over to the apps, let's go to apps. Let's see what we have a few that are preloaded in here. And you can remove all of these. We've got a browser, we got a calculator, a calendar, a gallery, Miracast receiver. This is the service that allows you to cast whatever was on your phone onto the screen here. We got a music option. We got videos. So if we go over to system update right here, and I got into mouse mode, I'd have to figure out how to get that. There we go. That's actually a button on the remote on the bottom left corner if we want a mouse. We can also connect up a mouse to the device. So this is where we do the update package, but we don't have any update package just yet. There is another way to do the update, and we're going to do that in a second. So let's go back into apps. So you get some basic apps here. We can easily go to the Play Store. Of course, you're going to have to log into the Play Store to use that, and of course get all the apps from there. We're not going to log in just yet. We'll do that in a little bit. We do have another app store icon here where the Play Store. You can add in other types of app stores. There are several out there. Of course, it's not showing us here, but there are several out there that we can get for APKs if we're looking for something that goes outside of the Play Store. And like I said, if you're developing an app, this is a great way to bring in your app into this device right here. Let's see. For the most part, yeah, we're seeing everything. This little last square is just showing us nature, but I have a feeling, yeah, there's going to be ads that will be appearing from here. And then on the bottom here, we can add our apps. So let's say we use calendar a lot, so we can just put that in there, and then we'll go back in. You can see the calendar there. So now it's at an easy position to get to call up. If we hit live TV, this is where we can add our live TV channels. Of course, you're going to have to find an app to do that. But once you do have that, you have the ability to record up to 8 days on this device and watch it before it expires, which is great. So let's go back here. We got our video on demand. Once again, that's going to be empty as the others are. And then playback, once again, empty. This is a very empty thing. We've got the Chrome browser right here. Send information. We can sync up our passwords. We're going to say no thanks because we're not adding an account right now. And there basically is a Chrome browser. So I can come up here and I can type in Geekazine, and it says that there's no internet, even though I do have a Ethernet jack in there. So we're gonna have to take a look at that really quick. So basically what happens is I have 2 networks inside of my house, one for my cameras, and they have to be pre-assigned. So I had it plugged in the wrong port. I plugged it into the right port, and now we've got an Ethernet address. As you can see right there, we've got all the information on that. So let's go back here. We're going to go to the settings. We can set our device name. We're not going to do that. We can check our network and internet, which we don't need to do. We can set up Bluetooth. If you got a Bluetooth keyboard or mouse or anything like that, you can set that up there. You can create your account and sign in there. You've got your apps and your device preferences. Let's go over here. Let's hit the about. This is where I'm very interested in here. First of all, this is where you're going to go for your system update. We're not going to hit this button just yet because there might be an update, and I don't want to. I want to go through this first. Actually, no, let's go through the system update first. Okay, it says there are no updates available. Perfect. But if you do have an update, you'll probably be going through here. All right, we've got the factory reset. We've got our status, which tells us all our IP addresses and Bluetooth addresses and all that other stuff. The serial number of the box, the legal information. We've got our model, which is the Superbox S7 Max. We got 64 gigabytes of storage in here. We've got 4 gigabytes of RAM. We know that we're on the Big Droid OS 2.0.1. We are on Android version 12. And here is one of the problems that I have with this box and with the S6, and I know that we can update it. It's that security patch level is still at October 5th of 2021. Well, I have a box over here that shows me that I can get a security patch of at least 2023. So there is a small little security issue on here. I've asked them about that. They said it's okay. And this is a deal that it's not really a deal breaker because all it means is you've got to protect your systems. Put high-end passwords on, 2-factor authentication in some cases. Like if you're putting in your Chrome username and password, make sure it has 2-factor authentication to it. So if somebody's trying to take your data, they can't log in to using your password. They still need that second layer of identification to make it work. And then of course by that time you can change the password. Kernel version says 5.4.125 plus. And of course the Android OS build is the Superbox S7 Max with date of July 7th, version 1.1. When updates will happen, that will change, of course. We can change our date and time, and it's saying automatic date and time. We're not in Pacific time zone, and I want 24-hour. I always use 24-hour, and we are in the Chicago area. I'd like to be in the Costa Rica area, but that's not going to happen right now. Costa Rica in February, that was great. So anyway, we set the time zone. We can set our language. We can say, hey, what kind of keyboard are we using? It's basic. It says a lean back keyboard. I'm not exactly sure what that totally means. Yeah, it's a keyboard that doesn't have a numeric keypad to it, but we can manage our keyboards because we can have more than one on here. And with that USB-A, by the way, you could plug in a dock and have a couple different devices plugged in on that. But of course, I believe it's still a USB 2.0 plug right there. So keep that in mind. We can set up our inputs. Let's go ahead and do that. So we have HDMI control, device auto power off, which we don't have active, power on, which we don't have active. Basically means if you turn on the TV, the box will turn on. And then we can set the language and set the audio pass through. Display and sound, we can match from what the device is sending us for video. I'd leave that all as it is, unless you know exactly what you need to do in here. We got audio output mode if we're using the digital audio versus the HDMI audio, or on audio out, you can switch that there. And then we can enable pass through. We'll leave that at there. We've got storage options. So if you plug in an external drive, it can manage that. We've got our Google Assistant. We can sign in and put it on. This is basically like an AI assistant. So we don't need to have AI assistants. We can keep that off if we want to. We've got Chromecast that's built in. We can set up a screensaver right here. Right now it's got a backdrop, and then we can turn it off or we can change that. We've got energy saver, we got the location, and if you don't want your location to be known, you can actually put on a VPN and run it through there, which is probably what I'll do here. Accessibility for if you have vision impairment or hearing impairment or anything like that. And then of course restart. So those are the device parameters right there. And that's pretty much everything in the settings. So we got the folder right here. That's our files. So if you load up stuff, then you can pull it up from here. What you could do with one of these Superboxes, this is great for the holidays. I've done this with projectors, and I can do this with a projector that doesn't have an Android operating system in there. I can hook up the Superbox to the projector or to a monitor and then put that in the window, the house. And then I can load this up with a whole bunch of Christmas videos and then have that play the Christmas videos. It becomes a virtual decoration, which is really sweet. And if you have the window to do that, and you have the monitor to do that, or the projector to do that, that's a great way to have some decorations without having to get up on the roof. Anyway, so we've got this. We can bring in videos. So if you've got your movie library, if you got your photos, you can bring that all in here. Music and files. I am in a band and we record videos, so I could put all those videos into here and then have this as the band repository if I wanted to. Or I could put this in, I could use this as a kiosk. So I could put in a whole bunch of videos. Let's say you work at an establishment that does live music and you record that live music. You could put all those videos in here and then hook it up to a monitor. So as people are walking around, they'll see the past bands that play. You know, things like that, just little things. You could put it up in your kitchen and have all your recipes in here in video format. So you can see that, or in picture format. So it basically go from picture to picture to picture to do whatever, maybe bring up Thanksgiving dinner and shows you how to make your turkey or your famous lasagna or your famous pie or whatever's famous for you. We got the cleanup mode. This is basically just going through the memory and installation packages and seeing if there's anything that needs to be cleaned up. Nothing right now because we have nothing in here. We've got a simple speed test. Go straight here using looks like fast.com to figure out your speed test. We got our trash, so we can uninstall apps and we can keep them in the trash for a little bit if we need to. And then of course we got the microphone. This is showing us how to use the microphone, which is basically the button on the remote. And it says that it's searching, so let's press the button. Oh, it's press OK and the back button for 8 seconds. And it says search completed. Keyboard gets us to the quick access area so we can add apps from here. And then if we need any help, we just hit this button and we can find out all the customer service information. That's pretty much it. And as you can see, now that we're connected to the internet, we do have a ad area happening over there. I'm not sure if we can get rid of that or not. I'll check with Superbox to see how that works. But anyway, that's the interface of the Superbox S7. Let's show you the Superbox S6 really quick so you can see the differences between the two. This is the S6. You can see the difference in the interface. Some of the boxes are a little bit smaller and we've got a little bit more information on the screen, whereas the other one looks a little bit cleaner. The other thing I noticed on the Superbox is the power is not USB-C powered. It's actually a regular wall port. So with this box, I can plug it into a device that can power you through USB-C. Like I said, a multi-port. I have the Anchor over here. The other one I have to actually plug into the wall, and which is over here because the cord is too short to reach over here. But the whole point is that this is what it looks like for the S6 between the S6 and the S7. So that's what you get with the Superbox S7. Let's take a look at some of the pros and cons. First of all, this is a device that you're gonna have to learn about it a little bit. Make sure if you create a profile, put in a high-end username, password, try and have two-factor authentication on anything that you put on here. But of course, you can pull anything from the Play Store. You can definitely put on your Hulu and your Netflix and your Amazon, all that other stuff. You can also bring in other things like games or anything like that. With this one, we brought in a karaoke system. We brought in Halloween sounds. We brought in Apple TV and Paramount. You can easily bring that in on this S7. I don't see a way to transfer from one to the other. That would have been nice. So if I'm updating, I just basically plug in the super boxes and say, hey, talk to each other, and pulled all that information from one to the other. It's not a big deal. The ad on the side here, if there's a way to get rid of that ad, I'll be happy, because A, don't really care about boxing, and B, I just don't want ads on my over-the-top television system. It seems that that's happening more and more often, and which is really sad. So, but being able to control my environment is one of those things that I like to do with this device. So the big question is, what are you going to do? You have a Superbox? Are you going to get the S7? Let me know in the comments below over at Geekazine or youtube.com/Geekazine, where you can like and subscribe, and of course hit that bell so you know when the next video comes out. Until next time, my name is Jeffrey Powers. Thanks a lot for watching, and then you guys geek out and stream on with Superbox. Of course, Geekazine has a whole bunch of merch, including t-shirts and hoodies. Like, for instance, the Geekazine logo hoodie. We got some great t-shirts, including 80s Jesus Saved Me, Guardian of the Geekery, the original Geek AI t-shirt. We have a couple variations of this one. And then I Like Geek Butts and I Cannot Lie. There are several more and more that are being added to the Geekazine merch page. So you can check that out over at Teespring. If you're on YouTube, you'll see those links below. And then over at amazon.com/shop/Geekazine. I appreciate that very much because it does support the channel. Now let's get back into this video.